You've been going around Elementor tutorials trying to really understand the basics and get going in your new web design career or side hustle, but every tutorial looks like it has a different interface. Some of them are using sections and columns, others are looking a bit different in their color on the interface, and then they're using containers. All of that is only because Elementor really is just constantly moving forwards and evolving. It's what makes Elementor the best page or website builder out there. It's definitely the way to future-proof your WordPress website. Sections and columns is the older system in Elementor, and it's still offered by Elementor as the default setting. So Flex containers and using grids, that's actually something you can move into using. But the default Elementor still comes with that sections and columns interface and system. Now, I'm going to say that I think that's best for newcomers. My Udemy course is using the sections and columns system, and I still think that that's the best thing for newcomers to use because it's just a lot more intuitive for initial website building. Although there are many more options in terms of how you can create pages with containers, the sections and columns, like I say, is more intuitive, and that gives you a bit of space to learn everything else that there is, not just with Elementor and all of the tools, but using WordPress anyway and wrestling with web design, how to lay out a page, how to, play with the different compositions and colors and animations. Oh my. And so if you are a newcomer, I would say still build 20 websites with sections and columns and start to understand everything else that there is to do, because you can still progress. You can then convert your websites to containers, and that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to convert a sections and columns website page into containers, and then we'll have a little look at what the immediate differences are, a bit of a basic look at how the containers work, and that will prepare you for realizing that you can do this anytime. But I would just quickly make the point that learning with sections and containers and columns, is probably best now for newcomers. So don't change from the default just yet, but when you decide it's time, we're going to have a look at how to do that right now. So let's pop along to, should I put my face on the left or the right? I'm going for the right. So this is it's a copy of a web page actually, which for a website I made on for one of my courses, and it was using the sections and columns system. And what's going on with this thing? It's right on my chin. So I'm actually removing this from Skillshare, and I'm going to sell this course privately on my website. So if you fancy building this, it doesn't look exactly like this. These were actually styled in Playfair and just like this here. But yeah, this is a play page, and so we're going to utterly destroy this with containers. So let's have a look. This page is built with sections and columns. I'm going to keep getting columns and containers mixed up, I'm sure. And so you can see this, and you must be familiar with this. This is the system that you will see on most Elementor tutorials, my Udemy course included. But it makes a lot of sense to us, doesn't it? We have a section, we have columns. The most complicated that it can get really is in somewhere like this, where in one section we would like a heading, and then we use the inner section and columns to create something like this. That's pretty much as complicated as the layout goes with this system, and so that's why I think it's great for newcomers, and then you can start to learn everything else. But it's time to make a change. Just relax, take it easy. So let's pop along to the dashboard, and we go along to Elementor and settings, and then we pop along to features, and this is where you see lots of very exciting experiments and features. Now, are you American or English? Beta? I'm English, but I tend to say beta. Anyway, so I was actually using Flexbox Container when it was still an alpha, like real test mode, and I had it on a live site, a couple of them actually, and it was fine, to be honest. But now it's a release candidate, so it's safe to use, and so all we have to do is toggle it to active. Later on, we would do things like play with nested elements, but what we want to do is save changes. And if we go back to the editor, it still looks the same. That's because I haven't refreshed it. Clever Chris. Refresh, and it looks the same. What has it done? It's done nothing so far. We've enabled it on the site. We've enabled that functionality for when we build a new section, but we haven't done that yet. Look, we have a section here and we have a column. If we go back to the elements, we'll see that this is waiting for us. Layout container. It's very, very exciting. Now we could start jumping into building a new section. We see that we've got this other layout here. We've got all of these basic layouts. This will give you an idea of just how different you can make a section look in terms of the layouts. Now this would have been quite difficult to make in the older system of sections and columns, but it's all possible for us now, and we're not going to cover that in this video, just to show you that that's how we start to create sections. So we could do that, and then we could yank containers in and things, and yeah, but we're not going to do that. What we want to do right now is convert this web page to containers, and then have a look at what that difference is and a bit of how it works. Okay, so when we click on the edit section, we'll see that next to in layout we have convert to container. Now, convert all of these selected sections and columns and paste them in a container below the original. Okay, so that sounds quite good. It's non-destructive. All we have to do is click convert, and it does exactly what it said it would do. It didn't change this. It didn't actually convert it. What it did was offered us the new alternative, shiny. So if we thought, oh, it's getting it wrong, we can just delete that and happy days. But actually, we do want that. So let's have a look at how this is different. Well, we understand how sections and columns work. We've got the column in the section, and in the column we have all of these different elements. Now here we have this section, which is a container, and then we have another container, and then within that container we have the elements. Now that looks like it's pretty much the same. However, it would be quite difficult to just change all of these around, whereas if we have the container selected, that's this fella here, we're able to immediately alter the layout of all of this. You can see how, especially for making a hero section, we might increase the padding of this and bring that in somewhat, but we can start to really just play around with all of these different alignments. It's much more versatile. We can even sort of space between or space around, or this one space evenly. But then we can see that we've got some margin on this button. So if I take that away, then we have the space evenly. You see. All right, but what it's doing is that it's giving lots of rules to the elements within it in a way that you can't do with the columns, not so much at least. So that's very, very versatile. It's very, very useful. But I want to say that switching to containers has many more different options in terms of how you can move elements around. And another thing that does is that it's not just about aesthetics and achieving layouts that you couldn't otherwise achieve with sections and columns. The other thing is that you're able to make the pages a bit more leaner in terms of the elements on the page. Now, Elementor has converted this section, and it's done a really good job. It kept it looking the same, so it's very reliable. But one of the benefits when we really want to get into using Flex Container is to improve performance by reducing the elements. So let's have a quick look at this, and we've got section, column, and then all of the elements in it. it's like for like here. We've got container and then container and then all of the elements in it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It might not seem much, but what we are able to do is move these elements, and it's easier to do it in the navigator, into the parent container there. You see what we're doing there? And then we've got this empty container. Now, I'll show you how to make that look good. But I'll just quickly say that what it's doing is that if we click on this container, you see the direction is from left to right. We could switch it around. Ooh, so now it's putting the elements in the other direction. But if we go down, boom, right? So the elements within the container are now going in a row but down, so in a column. And that even includes this empty container at the bottom here. So we can do away with that. We can delete it. We're not using it. And in the same way that we used alignment options in the container that these were in, I hope that's making sense, we can now do that for this container. So let's do that. Nope, let's do, what should we do? Right, we'll do that. We can also center align them. Now, obviously we can space these out a bit more so that you feel like it looks good. All right. But what we can see here is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 elements where we used to have 5. And there is less code as well for the alignment of all of these and for the positioning. And what that's going to do throughout an entire page is reduce all of the code and all of the elements, the weight of the page. And that will really do you some good in Google Pagespeed or GTmetrix, whatever you're using for your performance. So it's not just about aesthetics and new funky layouts, it's about performance of your web pages. Okay, so we could fix all of that. Bung some more margin there. Oh, knocked the mic. I'll leave that in. You can see that we can space these out all a bit more. So I would say we're sorted with that section. Boosh. We now have a container section. Let's have a look at this. How easy is it to do? So we've got this section and we're just going to convert. It places a like for like beneath it, which is great. We can see that that's all working really quite well. Let's have a look again at how containers is working. So within this container, we have 3 containers. Now, they are going in a horizontal row, aren't they? So let's have a look at that. In this container, we can see that it's going row horizontal. We can reverse that. Boosh. You see that? I don't know. Do that again. See? So it's just reversing the order of these. It's very easy to do. You do have other settings, but obviously it doesn't really make so much of a difference at the moment. I don't want to play around too much. We'll have a play some other time, but if I just increase the height, you can see that we can start playing with all of that, or put them in the middle. Yeah, there's so much you can do. Okay, so we'll bring that back down. So that's all looking pretty good, to be honest. It's all quite as lean as it could be. I don't think I'm missing anything there, but it certainly looks good. So let's do away with this section. We don't need that. Bang. Okay, so we could do some tweaks, but that looks good. And again, that really is how simple it is. Just click on a section, convert, and that's all looking quite nice. This will be another example, I would imagine. Let's have a look at this. So we have a container, and then we have a container, and then all of the elements. Again, we can make that a bit leaner, and it's easier to do in the navigator. But this container was set to down, but we don't need that. It's empty. Delete. But in this container, we can set that to column vertical. There was something else there, wasn't there? What was that? Button. Have I messed up a button? I didn't see what happened there. I was too busy just yapping away. What did that look like? Or maybe there wasn't a button. There is a button, but what's going on? Oh, look at that. I didn't know that was there. Surprise. But yes, I'll delete that anyway. I don't want it. But there we go. Like for like, all looks great. And that's how simple it is really to one, play around with, but two, also just to convert to the page. Just go through it. And the good thing is that you can also see how it's constructed. Obviously, we know that we can make improvements and make that page a bit more lean. But as you're learning to create all of these new sections, it's cool. You can actually just start to create your own. We can see how it's made. So we've got one section here, then we've got a container, and then a container. You see that? So in this one, we want it to go down, and we need a container, and then a container. Well, that's how Elementor made it anyway, and then the heading was in there. So let's copy and paste that. This is my last demo on this video because I wanted it to be quite short. I'm just going to bring a color in because I don't need to find a picture for you. So we can see that that's what Elementor has done to convert this, and then it has container, container, container. So if I just take this one, I'll copy it and I'll paste, and then I'll duplicate, and then I'll duplicate again. But what is it we want to do? We don't want this to be in a vertical column, so we're going to select the container with the elements in it, and then put it into a row. Boom, that's great. But can we make this a bit leaner? Well, we don't need this container that's containing the heading. We could actually have that as an element on its own and remove this container. That's leaner, isn't it? That's much nicer. Now, before we wrap up, and yes, this is a next day edit, so I've flung my face off somewhere else. I mentioned earlier that this does not just enable new and funky layouts. It's not just about aesthetics, but it has a performance value. Switching to containers will minimize the code, make it a bit leaner, so that the page will perform better. Now, before I started recording this video last night, I did a page speed test on this very page, the one that we started to change. And this was the result. We've got mobile at 62 and desktop at 77 performance, and there are a bunch of things that we could always improve. We can always cache the website. There's nothing on this website, it's just a tutorial play around, so I've not cached it or anything. But just changing from sections to columns to containers on the page, this is the result that we get now. We've got so comparing mobile 74 to mobile 62, and then we take that to desktop. Then we take that to desktop. It was 77 and now it's 98. Now, there are loads of other things that we could do to improve page speed, and I would always say do a couple of page speed tests on the same page and check that you're getting consistent results. But that is the only thing that I've done between those two page speed tests. The only thing I've done, is to change from sections and columns to containers, and I just want to make that note so that you can consider the performance value of making that change. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for the little demos. If you feel like it's useful to go more in depth into this, if you're ready to make that switch and start converting your pages and really play around with some containers and layouts and actual leaning things out for performance, let me know, and I will certainly take that into some of my upcoming tutorials. But that's how to enable containers and then start to convert your existing web pages. So I'm late to the party in that announcement. Everyone's been doing this since the test versions came out, which is when I started to use it. But again, it's still a default for Elementor to have sections and columns, and I still think that there's some good use for that, especially for clients who really don't want to edit pages with containers. I know that some of them find that really difficult. So for those clients, I would still make them a website with sections and columns, to be honest. And then also, if you're just looking to get into web design and using WordPress and using Elementor, I still think build a bunch of websites with sections and columns and then go through the motions of this video, convert those pages, and in the process you can really start to learn how to use containers for new layouts and also just to bring down the code, the heaviness of the code. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, all the rest of the other stuff. I do have a Udemy course that you might find useful and interesting, or hopefully both. And if you have any requests for tutorials, please do let me know, and I'll see what I can do. All right, I'll catch you later. Ta-da. Just say bye, Chris. Just say bye.